Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 11 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The Odds Breakers. And follow us on social media / The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by MyBookie.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie. Use the promo code The Odds Breakers. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs, sponsor the podcast and the website, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $17.99 a month, you get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. Some access to some hidden pages as well. Show some of the handicapping sites that I use. And for $2 more, you can have all that. Become a patron subscriber. Get the podcast a little bit early. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a Free Picks newsletter subscriber. College basketball is rolling, my friends. What a great weekend we had. 7-1 on Saturday. Was a fantastic Saturday. We were 7-3-1 for the weekend. Since last Thursday, we are 10-4-1. So having just a fantastic little run here in college hoops. Some huge upsets this weekend as well. Baylor going down to Kansas. Thank God we were on Kansas that game. We had BYU beating Gonzaga at home. Man, I had that thing circled for 2 months. For like 2 months since they got their butts beat at Gonzaga without Childs. Obviously, San Diego State lost to UNLV, which was a huge crusher as well. And the Dukies lost their last 2 out of 3 games. They won against Virginia Tech on Saturday, but they lost last Wednesday to NC State. Then they just lost on Tuesday to Wake Forest. So some serious upsets happening, some shakeups for the top teams here. There, to me, is really no clear top team in college basketball except maybe Kansas. I do give Kansas the nod. They had some hiccups earlier when they lost to Villanova. They actually almost lost to Dayton. That thing went in overtime. But no, Kansas is definitely the team that everyone's trying to beat. But I'm not so sure the Big 12 is all that great. I think the Big 10 is the best conference in basketball. I guess the Big 12 is probably second because of Kansas and Baylor, but the rest of the teams are just you can kind of have them. I mean, Kentucky, took care of Texas Tech when they played. West Virginia has been on an awful little run there. They beat Ohio State, but Ohio State's definitely not the best team in the Big Ten. So, the Big Ten's up top, but right now every team is almost as good as the best team, except for Northwestern and Nebraska. So the Big Ten is still very mixed up, and I'll go into the power ratings in a few minutes here. So we have a great show for you today to cover some college basketball this weekend. Kyle Hunter is back to talk about some very big games this weekend. Can't wait to get him on here. I'm, of course, going to go over the Big Ten power rankings, who's first, who's last, go over that. So I wanted to talk about some of the top teams on KenPom. You got Kansas number 1, Baylor number 2, Gonzaga number 3, San Diego State number 4, Duke number 5, Dayton number 6, Michigan State number 7, Maryland number 8, Michigan number 9, and Ohio State number 10. So you have 4 Big Ten teams towards the end of that, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I got to tell you, I think even though the Big Ten is probably the best conference. When I say best, I mean deepest. Most teams are very good. I still think they could be a little bit overrated coming into this NCAA tournament. In the tournament, teams have improved throughout the years, throughout the games, throughout the months, throughout conference play. And now you can just only judge what the Big Ten is doing against each other here. But the fact that there's no elite team that has no weaknesses in the Big Ten or very low weaknesses, makes me think that the Big Ten could, have a big showing in the Big Ten and the NCAA tournament and then all get bounced by the Final Four. You never know. This Ken Pom tells you that there shouldn't be a Big Ten team in the Final Four, most likely, if you got Kansas at number 1, Baylor at number 2, Gonzaga at number 3, San Diego State number 4, Dayton number 6, Duke number 5. I actually think, in my opinion, the rankings are a little bit off. I think Creighton shouldn't be a 12 team. They're more like a 7 or 8 team. I think Ohio State is a top 20 team. I don't think they are a top 10 team. Michigan,
so hot right now,
shouldn't be ranked number 9. They're on a nice little streak, but have you noticed lots of teams go on little streaks here? They play Wisconsin tonight. We're recording before this, so this will tell you a little bit more about which team is, possibly more deserving. If Wisconsin beats Michigan, that should shake some stuff up. But it's at Michigan. Michigan's a 6.5-point favorite. We shall see. I think that Louisville at 14 is a little bit too low. I know they had a hiccup against Florida State in a couple games before that they did, but they're still a great team and have a chance. I actually think Florida State at number 17 is too low. I think they're a top 10 team. I think Gonzaga is about right. I think Baylor is top 5, but not top 2. I think Duke's about right at number 5. I think San Diego State is top 8 and not top 4. San Diego State has some height problems. Maryland, they're about right, but they have some depth problems. So Kansas is really the only team that I really agree with where they're at here. And Duke, Kansas and Duke. Dayton, I think, is a little bit too low. I think Dayton's a top 4 team right now. If you ask me right now, I would take Dayton over San Diego State at this moment right now. So just wanted a quick mention on that on Ken Pom. Creighton, I gave out a future play on them last week. Now they're all the way up to number 12 on Ken Pom. They're the team to beat now in the Big East. And I really think that Coach Greg McDermott has done a fantastic job. There's a lot of stuff going on in the NFL here. The Combine's coming right up here. The trade rumors are going on. Still all that info on Tom Brady. I honestly think that Tom Brady is probably just bluffing, and I think that Robert Kraft has maybe even told him to do this. It's my conspiracy theory. Just to keep the news on the Patriots. It makes the team more valuable when there's news on them. So, not necessarily this is true, and I like a good conspiracy, but I really think that Brady's staying right there. And if you look at, there's some odds on there. Tom Brady stays with the Patriots is minus 210. That's probably a good play in my opinion, because I don't see why at this point of his career he should finish somewhere else. I can guarantee you there's people that regret doing that, like Joe Montana. Jerry Rice probably regrets it a little bit. Emmitt Smith, he probably regrets it a little bit. Looking at other sports, Michael Jordan went to the Wizards. That always kind of turned into one of those, why'd you do that type things. There's no reason for Tom Brady to leave when he's won so many championships, in my opinion. So I think this is all personally a front there. But there's a lot of podcasts right now talking about the NFL, the Combine, and talking about season win totals and things like that. In my opinion, it is way too early to bet season win totals. I know some books have stepped their game up and put some numbers out there, but they have them juiced to the sides that they like, and a lot of those and I briefly looked at them. A lot of the sides I agree with that are juiced. I don't want to necessarily pay juice unless I have some answers. And you really don't have any answers right now because the NFL draft hasn't even happened. There's a ton of free agents out there that are not signed. There's absolutely the NFL and the odds makers for the NFL know that there's just so much variance out there that even a decision that could be looked at as smart could just turn out completely bad at this point for any sharper better in the NFL. So, in my opinion, it's a mistake to take them this early. I'm going to wait until after the NFL draft like normal when I have a lot more information. Obviously, the schedules are out, so that's pretty much all you have to go by and some returning production. But there's going to be a lot of production going on each team that we don't even know about yet. So a team you might be fading, all of a sudden might be building up. Like maybe the Bengals will build up their offensive line with their quarterback that they're going to draft, which is most likely Joe Burrow. Maybe that's going to happen, or maybe there's some, just like the rumors say that Joe doesn't necessarily want to go there and they trade down and they want to, kind of keep the rebuilding process going here. I don't know. There's just not enough information for me to advise any plays. So just watch out for that. In my opinion, it is way too early. I would rather have most of the information for me to take a look and make a more than an educated guess. I can actually quantify some of these things, which players are playing where on the offensive lines. It all starts in the trenches for me, the defensive lines, where some of the big free agent cornerbacks going to sign, There's just a lot more information that comes into these season win totals, and every single half a win makes a big difference. It really does. So, in my opinion, I would say to wait on those at least until after the NFL draft, and that's when we start putting together our team projections as we did the last few years. All right, well, let's get into our Big Ten power rankings here, and not a ton of changes. Maryland is still at the top at number 1. They lost to Ohio State, as we saw on Sunday, but then all of a sudden on Wednesday they're losing to Minnesota, and a very desperate Minnesota team. They make a last-second three to win that game. That was huge, and that was probably the difference right there for me to keep them at number 1. It was a win on the road. It showed a lot of poise to do that. They do have some depth issues there, but they're still most likely the best team in the Big Ten. And when I say most likely, it's because there's so many other teams that are extremely good. Penn State is next. Penn State had a couple hiccups with Indiana at home, and obviously, or Indiana on the road, and Penn State also lost to Illinois at home, and then they just barely beat Rutgers. Now, they're beating Rutgers good the whole game, but Rutgers came back in that game, and they only won by 1. I have Michigan State number 3. Michigan State has some serious upside, though. I don't know what's wrong with the way Xavier Tillman's been playing. I don't like it. It seems kind of weak. I don't like how the way Brown's been playing. So we'll see what happens if they come down to the Big Ten tournament. They might all of a sudden turn it on. Illinois, I have number 4. Illinois had their skid already, but Ayo Dosunmu is finally healthier and should be a force these last few games. Iowa, I have 5th. Iowa's hard to figure out. They blew a game against Michigan State. At Michigan State, they had that win. They have to be consistent to if they want to break in the top 3 for me. And then Michigan, I have Michigan number 6 because they're just so hot right now and just looking so good, looking like they did with Beeline in some ways. They're not as good as that team with Mo Wagner and Matthews, and they're not quite there yet, but they're looking a little bit more like that team lately, and they've been winning a lot of games lately. Ohio State, I have next. Ohio State still, in my opinion, is overrated on some of the bigger sites, the AP, as well as the Ken Poms and the Bart Torviks. Wisconsin, I have them next, and I believe that would be 8th. They edged Minnesota here because Minnesota just cannot win a game here at home. They've blown one against Iowa, and they just blew one, that huge one against Maryland. It would have been a nice win, but now they just put themselves right back on the bubble, which isn't good. They lost 4 of their last 5 games. They just beat Northwestern, but whoop-de-doo. Number 10, I have Rutgers. Rutgers is a bubble team now. They need to win out, in my opinion, and possibly win another game to make the big dance. And I think only 9 teams will be in the big dance here. I'm not sure it's 10 like everybody was saying earlier. I just don't see them giving the Big Ten that much credit. There's always another team that they're going to want to put in ahead of that. That's a lot in one conference to put in too. And that's why Purdue and Indiana being the next 2, they need some serious wins here if they want to be considered for the tournament. Purdue, Indiana, and then you have Nebraska and Northwestern. And Northwestern has a game against Illinois in state rivalry. That spread is only 6. So I was close to making a Northwestern play, and they actually played Illinois really tough. But at the same time, maybe they just do not care at this point, winning only 6 games and losing 20. So I decided to stay away from that one unless it gets back up to 7 or 7.5. All right, that was your Big Ten rankings, and obviously that is subject to change. We have some huge games coming up here. We are going to have some podcasts a little bit more often during March. Obviously, it's March Madness. Probably looking at some Mondays and some Tuesdays coming up. It'll be at least twice a week. We're going to have our agenda, and so really excited for March Madness. Obviously, the conference tournaments are already starting next week. That is so exciting. I'm hoping to find some sneaky plus plays, some future plays for our premium members. And before I forget to mention, this is our 4th year. 2020 is year 4 of us doing podcasts, and we are now on episode 200. Wanted to thank all of you listeners out there for sticking with us. It's been growing by leaps and bounds. I really appreciate all the feedback that you give me. And, it's some of the negative stuff. I don't care if it's honest. I want to hear it so I can change something. I really appreciate that. And I just hope that I can keep giving you value. I hope the handicappers that come on our site and come on the podcast can keep giving you value. We are trying our best just to give your sports betting experience a much more positive one than people have had just by going solo in the past. So collaboration is key. Information is key. That's why I reach out to so many people, and I hope that we've become part of your day and part of the way that helps you handicap your own games for your own sports betting plays. All right, without further ado, let's bring on our guest, Mr. Kyle Hunter from HunterSportsPicks.com and BetterSportsPicks.com. And now I'm very happy to welcome back a longtime guest and amazing handicapper. You know him as Mr. Kyle Hunter from BetterSportsPicks.com and HunterSportsPicks.com. You can follow him on Twitter at KyleHunterPicks. Kyle, March Madness is around the corner, my man. We already have the conference tournaments starting next week. How's this time of year treating you, bud?
I've been on a good run here of late. It's nice to be on a nice run here in college basketball. I've had a streaky season. You and I have talked about that a little bit here in the past few days. But I started out hot, went ice cold for a while, and now I'm 51-26 in my last 77 college hoops plays. I'm always totally honest and transparent about how I've done. College basketball has been a really good sport for me. Totals especially very good. 10-2 in my last 12 sides, which, since I'm not as good at sides as totals, I take a little bit of more pride in that, to be honest. When I do pretty well on sides, I feel pretty good about it. But I've been running pretty good here in college hoops. 51-26 run up for the season now.
Wow.
I believe I've had 12 or 13 games that I took the under that lost solely because of overtime, and I've had one that went over because of an overtime. So I've had some really bad overtime luck. So the fact that I'm up on the season, even with that, I'm pretty happy.
I had some bad overtime luck too until last weekend. I had Arizona, Oregon overtime or over, and I thought that was dead. And then Arizona's got a foul. It's tied. 1 second left, and they get 2 free throws. I'm like, well, this one's done. He misses them both. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So
I have to tell you, I have to say something here. I had the under.
I figured you did.
I'm sitting here while you're talking, shaking my head, going, no, please don't do this to me. No, that was a rough one. I have to say, I feel like I had the right side there, but
I know.
And then the guy,
I was wrong on that side, Kyle. And I'll tell you this, I noticed that right away. I was like, dang it, I was like, well, it's still a good day. I'll be 6-2, and then all of a sudden, it became a great Saturday at 7-1. But you were right. I was on the wrong side, but I got some.
It happens. It happens. And in this business, I've seen just about everything at this point. So I usually get frequent emails of unbelievable. This is, I've never seen anything like it. And at this point, I've seen most things. I've done it long enough to where.
Yeah.
It was a little surprising to me that guy couldn't make one free throw at the end of the game, but I do remember he had just busted his head on the floor. So it was kind of a weird situation where he probably shouldn't have shot the free throws. So
maybe not. Maybe he was a little bit concussed or something.
Weird game. Pac-12 has been a little bit interesting, but what you said at the top there, I have to say, we're about to flip the calendar over to March. I mean, where's time going? And you know how crazy this time of the year gets with conference tournaments and then March Madness. I love it, though. This is a great time of the year for a college basketball fan.
It sure is. It's the most exciting time, I cannot wait to get into just the beginning of these conference tournaments. I'm going to look at them, see if there's any values in the futures right away like I do, and obviously can't wait to get on some of those teams that I think are really motivated. So real excited time of year. This is my favorite time of year, and yours too, I'm sure. I know we love bowl season, but I think March Madness trumps it by a little bit, my man. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, I agree. I would say that college football and college basketball are really close to me as far as which is my favorite sport, but I think March Madness is the best event.
Well, fantastic. And obviously, you give us great information to help us through, Kyle. I'm so excited to have you on this podcast here, and we're going to have you more during March Madness. I know that you've been under the weather with your knee and everything, and I hope that's doing better. We talked a little bit about it last time. But I think as long as it doesn't keep you away from watching too many games, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's maybe an excuse to try to watch as many games as possible. Hasn't been a lot of fun, no weight on my leg for 6 weeks. Once it doesn't sound that bad, then you get into it and you're like, man, this time is going really slow, But yeah, I have been watching a lot of basketball and working quite a bit, just from the recliner. So I've had a little bit of a different setup, but I'm still. It's been running pretty good. And, I've had a couple people joke with me. I had one guy joke with me, you're going to have surgery pretty often based on that run. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not that superstitious.
Yeah. I was wondering if it was the Percocets that made you go 51-26, but we'll see. Either way, it's just the fact that you study the game so much, my man, and you have some great information at bettersportspicks.com here. And I found some great information that you've been posting. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit, about what can keep them coming back to that site?
Well, bettersportsfix.com is a newer site. I started it to be a little bit different than my other site, huntersportsfix.com, which I'm going to keep everything going with huntersportsfix.com. Nothing changes there. Still the free picks newsletter over there. Bettersportsfix.com, I'm going to be a little bit different. I have a lot of people who want totals only plays from me because I've done so well with totals. Some people want sides only. You buy what you want. You buy as little or as much as you want there at bettersportsfix.com. Only totals, only sides, all the plays. I have another top handicapper there, Steven Nover. A lot of people know him. He's a big name, has done a really good job in the long term. Big Vegas guy who has really done a great job, especially in the NFL and NBA. He's really beaten up the pro sports pretty badly over the years. So he is a good addition to the site, and he provides some free information. His free picks have done really well. I think he's posted 3 or 4 free play winners in a row, the free members area. And basically what you can do over there is, like I said, you can purchase things, but I primarily wanted to say there's going to be a lot of free information at bettersportsfix.com. That's what I really want to try to give. I know you do the same thing. We try to help people be more knowledgeable even in making their own plays. I'm not just trying to sell my plays. I want to try to help people win. So sharp money reports, long-term betting systems, my leans that just missed the premium card. For example, we'll take last Saturday. Last Saturday, I went 2-3. The tiebreaker was that Oregon and Arizona game, which I'm kind of reliving in my mind right now. But my leans that I posted there that just missed the premium card both won. So I know a lot of people followed those. And, it's frustrating as a handicapper when I don't put those on the premium card, but it makes me feel a little bit better that, I can give it out as free information and somebody can take advantage of it. So that's something I'll be doing there. You can sign up for the free members area. It's a totally free registration. There's also a free picks newsletter, which will go out occasionally with free plays and special discounts for bettersportsfix.com.
Well, there you go. And it's all about giving information. People find that valuable, and they try to return the favor. And so that's what I love about this little community that we have. Of listeners, sports bettors. People we collaborate with. There's nothing better. And obviously, this time of year is just literally the icing on the cake. So fantastic site. I recommend everybody check it out. So let's move into the next question I do have for you here. And I guess let's talk about the time of the year. Let's talk about, we're at the end of February here. It's actually leap year, amazingly. So Saturday will be the 29th here. I wonder if people are going to be superstitious or anything. But this time of year, what should we be looking for when we're looking at some teams here? What should we watch out for as well?
Well, I wanted to start off by saying that, it's kind of this widely known thing in the betting community that, if you're sharp, you have to take all underdogs, and a lot of people say that it's not really the truth. I mean, I don't think you want to land on a bunch of favorites and never be taking underdogs, but at the same time, you just don't rule out one side of it. The reason I wanted to bring that up here is this is a dangerous time of the year to just blindly bet underdogs, because there's a lot of underdogs that really don't care about these last couple games of the season. I mean, what do they have to play for here? They've had a disappointing season. They're a home underdog. Somebody says, well, this is their last home game. They don't care. I mean, this is their last game. Maybe the senior on the team cares a little bit, but you could also say that they're more nervous for that last game. Home dogs have done poorly, I should say. Road favorites have done well in the last couple games of the regular season. And I think this is because road favorites, there are some teams who have plenty to play for. These teams are playing for a division title. They're playing for an NCAA tournament at large spot. They're playing for better seeding in the conference tournament. The team that is the underdog in many of these cases, now not in all cases, and that's why you have to understand, do both teams care about this game or not? Motivation is something I think you want to handicap quite a bit this time of the year. And I know it can be tricky. And, if I don't think I know what the motivation is for the two teams or for one of the teams, I'm going to pass on that game, at the end of the regular season. I'll just pass and try to find a better spot. I don't think you have to just bet a ton of games. I do think this is a bit of a tricky time to go extremely heavy volume. These are complex handicaps here at the end of the regular season, but I wanted to say that, as I go back and look at the angles, favorites have done better than underdogs in the last couple games of the regular season. I think that will probably continue to be the case. So, while you don't want to, be laying 10 or 15 points that often in college basketball, if there's a time of the year to do it, this is it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The bubble teams here, something to look at. Some of them are going to be extremely motivated to boost them away from the NIT, CIT, and get into the NCAA tournament here. Now, one thing I will say about bubble teams is they might burst your bubble as well. Whenever I bet on a bubble team, and they lose, the first thing I say is they shouldn't even be in the tournament. It's just kind of it's that defense mechanism. Like, why the hell did I bet? I mean, South Carolina versus Georgia was one of them this week that I thought that should take care of business better, but they didn't. But all jokes aside, the thing that I don't want to do is bet against bubble teams. So it might just be games you're going to pass more often, and that's what you're talking about in being selective, Kyle. I completely agree with that. It's like there's going to be a lot of teams that you're not sure what their motivation, and some of these bubble teams are playing each other, and you can think the first inclination is, are they going to score more points? But maybe no. The second inclination is they're going to have some better defense. So some teams will step their defense out of absolute nowhere, and when you thought it might have been the over, it's actually the under there. So be very careful, right?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. That was a point that I wanted to make as well, is that games that mean a lot to both teams, under. Games that mean nothing to either team, over.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people do kind of know that that's the way this goes. So I think it's important that if you are just looking as you're handicapping on Friday afternoon for the Saturday games, or on Saturday before the Sunday games, you probably want to circle a few of these games that you see two teams that, why does either team care about this game? Probably want to bet the over pretty early, because I think that'll get bet up. And then in the other case, you see two teams playing for a league title in the final game, they're going to bet the under. So, you can predict the line move pretty well by that.
Yeah, when they miss, they're going to make sure the other team misses. So, yeah, that's a very important point there. So, great job, Kyle, on that one. So, last question before we get into a couple games. I know I asked you this, and it was either when you were on in December or January. I can't remember. I think it was December, actually, this year. I asked you to give us a team that would be under the radar here that you think has a good shot to make some noise, possibly get into the NCAA tournament. I believe you said East Tennessee State. I think you did, and they are killing it this year. I think they have only 4 losses for the whole year, and great call, just like you called Utah State last year. So I'm going to ask you again here. I have maybe 2 of them that I want to throw out there, but what are any smaller conference teams that could make some noise if they obviously win their conference tournament to make the NCAA tournament, or if they can get in at large?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. As you were asking this question, I had jotted down a couple notes here for this one. East Tennessee State was listed first. And I was sitting here thinking, I believe I said East Tennessee State before. I'm going to have to ask the listeners if somebody can go back or if you remembered. As I was thinking about it, I think I do remember talking about Steve Forbes being a really good coach and somebody that I trust to really coach up his team very well. I still think they're underrated a bit by some people. The SoCon's a really good conference. I think anybody that gets in from the SoCon could be a dangerous team. You got other good teams in that conference with Furman and UNC Greensboro. Even Wofford's a pretty good team. They've lost quite a few games. I think the Southern Conference is far better than most people realize it is. So I think East Tennessee State's still a very under the radar team for the general public. If you've been listening to the odds breakers, not so under the radar maybe, but very good team. I think they're dangerous. The other team I was going to mention is Liberty. Liberty did it last year. Why couldn't they do it again?
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of the same guys, a veteran group, a very good coach. They take really good care of the basketball, play great defense. Also, they slow the game down, keeps games closer. So if they play a team that has more talent than them, which is likely to happen, I don't think anybody would say that Liberty has, far more talent than the team that they're going to play against. The fact that they're such a disciplined team can help them pull an upset in a game like that. So I think Liberty is one of those teams that, hopefully they won't get hyped too hard if they get into the tournament, because I always hate those teams that, get hyped so much by the guys on TV and things like that to where, they're a huge public underdog. So hopefully they don't end up being something like that, but they're certainly a team that's capable as well.
Well, you stole my thunder there, so maybe they will be a public underdog. I don't know. Not that I necessarily think like that, but word spreads, man. There's listeners out there. They're going to start talking. The High Liberty as well is one of mine. And you're 100% right. They did it last year, and they had that experience. They beat Mississippi State, I believe. I think it was in the first round, and that was one of your 12-5 upsets. Well, I can see them seated at the same place, And the only difference, really, Liberty. They have no big wins. Top 100, I guess, is Akron, which is 80, and that's their biggest win because their conference is just so bad. The Atlantic Sun, but that doesn't make them a bad team. But with the way they slow that ball down, 352nd in adjusted tempo, 353rd in average possession length. That's Virginia. It's them too, really. I can't believe they're actually slower for possession length than Virginia. They'll frustrate some teams. And if they can hit their shot, all it takes is another miss, and a ton of time goes by frustrating the other team to score. So I like them about them. Plus, they have that 23 ranking in effective field goal percentage. They can make those shots. Their defense is pretty good as well. So the one thing they don't have is a lot of height. So if a team really wants to try to beat them up, they'd have to go down low. So that's about it. But I think you're absolutely right, and that's why I wrote down Liberty. The other one I have is completely off the radar, and they'd obviously have to make it in the tournament. But the other one I have is North Texas, actually. And Conference USA, they're probably the front runner there. They only have 3 conference losses. But if you look, since January 2nd, they've only lost twice, and that was against Rice, and they had a hiccup at home against Louisiana Tech. But what I do like about North Texas is they play slow, just like we talked about before. They're 333rd in average possession length, so they can frustrate some teams. And they shoot the 3 ball very well. They rank 15th in the nation, 38% from 3, and they rank 12th in the nation at 55.2% from adjusted field goals or adjusted 2-point percentage. So that tells me that they can score the ball and frustrate some people. They don't play the greatest defense, but if they can just slow down the game enough and draw some charging fouls, that's another team to be a really sneaky upset team. This could be like one of those 14 seed upsets, right? So 14-3, is it? Yeah, I think that would be a fun one. Any thoughts on that?
I think they'd probably be seeded a little bit higher than 14th, maybe, but maybe a 13-4 upset, which has actually happened plenty of times lately too. So the thing I would add to that is I think it's pretty ironic that you and I both had Liberty, and North Texas was one of them I considered to put on here. Absolutely. I mean, we're definitely thinking alike. I think Grant McCasland is a very underrated head coach. I don't think most people realize. And go back and see what he did in the Sun Belt with Arkansas State back in 2017. So he comes, Arkansas State the year before was 11-20. They were 11-18 2 years before he was there. So they didn't have anything going. They go 20-12 in his 1 year there. And since, Arkansas State 11-21, 13-19, and now they're 15-15 this year. So clearly, it was a drop off without McCasland. And North Texas, I mean, he didn't exactly walk into a terrific situation at North Texas. They were 8-22 before he got here. Immediately go to 20-18, and then last year they started out really good, and people kind of got off the bandwagon at the end of the year. But North Texas lost a lot of games at the end of last season because they were injured. They had a lot of guys miss a lot of games. I think he's a really good coach and definitely a very dangerous team if they made it in.
All right, man. Well, great minds think alike, Kyle. So that's the way I'm just going to chalk that one up to. Hopefully we're right about this. If the spread's right, obviously it all has to do with the number. They could be some plays for that first round in the NCAA tournament. I'm really hoping that North Texas does win their conference to get in, and I think East Tennessee State should be winning their conference as well, as we mentioned before. Well, let's get into some big games there, Kyle. And on Friday there isn't any huge Power 5 games, but that's even better for you because you're the man when it comes to these smaller conferences. We're looking at the Sun Belt here. Georgia Southern versus Georgia State, and it's a rivalry, and I think that's going to be a big game for you and me to watch anyway on Friday, but it's going to be about 5 points. I wrote down Georgia State -5, total around, I think I wrote it down 149. I changed it to 152. Do you have any thoughts on this baby?
Yeah, in your notes that you sent me, you had 149. That was going to be the first thing I said, is I thought that was too low. So I would have leaned to the over at that. People might want to bet this one under because this is a fairly big game between two rivals. And in general, I like that thought process, but you do have to handicap the game individually. And if you look at this game, Georgia State in the first game, you look at the stats from that first game, they had 18 offensive rebounds. Watch the rebounding numbers here. Both of these teams have really struggled giving up a lot of second chance points. That could be an issue again here. A lot of free throws in these two teams' games as well. And a lot of that goes together. I think that makes some sense in general. If you kind of common sense that if you give up a lot of second chance opportunities, you're probably going to be hacking a lot because somebody just got an offensive rebound right by the hoop. So, right. These guys are going to be shooting free throws. There's going to be second chances. Georgia State pushes the tempo. Georgia Southern plays pretty quick. Georgia Southern not terribly efficient on offense, but I would lean to the over in this game, to be honest with you. I'm hoping it's a little lower than 152, or maybe it gets bat down a little bit. But I think that, this is one of those chances where Georgia Southern would love to get road revenge here. Can they, though? I mean, they haven't really been playing very well. Georgia State's been good at home other than one big hiccup. I don't have a strong feeling on the side. I think if I was going to play this game, I'd rather take the over.
Yeah. And so that's what I wrote down. How much defense are they going to play? Both defenses look, not that good here. 116th ranking for Georgia Southern and 147th for Georgia State. However, in the conference, Georgia State's ranked 4th, and Georgia Southern is actually ranked 1st in the conference for defense. So that's the one thing.
Nobody plays defense in the Sun Belt, really.
That's true. So like them playing, them ranking that high just means that they're still terrible compared to everybody else. So right. It's not like it matters. Well, you look at these scores, Kyle. 81-61 against UT Arlington. That's Georgia Southern right there. It's just there's just some high scores, and so agree with you there. Well, their possession length is pretty quick. Both of them are top 40 when it comes to average possession length. 16 seconds for Georgia State. So I do get what you're saying there. How much? I wanted to ask you, how much of a rivalry is this between these two? It's the same, state and all. Is this kind of the game that they circled?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest rivalry for both teams. I don't know of another team that would be a bigger rival for either of these teams. So, yeah, I think this is a big rivalry game. I think these two teams have proven that they want to run when they play each other. There were 81 possessions in the first game, so they got to 159 points, and they really didn't shoot very well. Mm-hmm. So, if they shoot the ball a little bit better, a few more of the free throws fall, only 22 of 33 for Georgia Southern in that first game from the free throw line. I think this could be a pretty high scoring game. I think that this is a big game between two teams, but I don't think they completely change their style of play when they play each other.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, the Eagles really rely on their 3-point game a lot. They shoot a lot of threes, and the fact that they're traveling to Georgia State usually bodes bad for the 3-point teams, especially when they can't rebound. Offensive rebounding is 263rd. So I lean Georgia State with the -5. That's kind of where I probably put that. So nothing huge, though, but I had to bring that one up because I couldn't find a ton on Friday to talk about. So,
right.
So that's your Friday lean. We'll see where those where that spread comes out. Saturday, Kyle, you picked a game here to talk about. I love it because it's just like you said, UNC Greensboro versus Chattanooga here in the SoCon. And I got to tell you, this is just one of those spots where can Greensboro pull ahead of East Tennessee State? Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Well, UNC Greensboro, when I sent you this note, it was before they lost to Furman at home, 81-67. So it complicated this handicap, to be totally honest with you. This is a spot where, honestly, I expected UNC Greensboro to beat Furman at home. That was a pretty good matchup for them, I thought, and they shot the ball poorly and lost. Now Greensboro, the question is, they're 23-7. The bubble's really weak, but I can't imagine Greensboro is going to get an at-large bid. East Tennessee State might, and I think they should. I hope they would. But UNC Greensboro is unlikely to be able to make it unless they win the conference tournament. So what does that mean about this game? Because Greensboro really cost themselves in the standings a lot. Now they have 4 losses. East Tennessee State only has 2. Furman has 3. This is their last game. So
you're right.
They're out of it. And if you think about it that way, this is a dangerous spot for UNC Greensboro, where it could have been a must-win spot. Now it's, do we care about this game, or are we just getting ready for the conference tournament? So I went from thinking I was going to lean UNC Greensboro here to thinking Chattanooga on the money line might be a decent plus money play here. If you can get, I don't know what it'd be, plus 160, plus 150, something like that. Depending on what the price is, it might be a good, at least flyer to take. I think that this is a game that has quite a bit of unknown now that, UNC Greensboro doesn't have as much to play for as it looked like they would have. And Chattanooga's been a much improved team this year. So Greensboro uses their full court press, forces a lot of turnovers. Chattanooga's been pretty good at taking care of the basketball. In fact, they're first in the conference and turnover percentage on offense. So I'm going to lean here to Chattanooga based on the question marks on UNC Greensboro's motivation level.
That's a good call because Furman should be the 3 seed. Or 2 seed now, right? They have 3 losses here in conference. Even if Greensboro wins, I don't know if they're I think they're still the 3 seed here, it looks like. And
and Furman's playing Citadel, so they should win their last game.
Yeah, exactly. There's no chance that they're going to lose to Citadel anyway. So Citadel ranked 333rd. So this might be a spot where they literally do not care and want to stay healthy for their tournament, right? So Chattanooga, great call on that one for that spot. And I did write this down Wednesday right before the game. So good call on that. I guess I expected a win as well here, and that did change the handicap by a lot, by a heck of a lot here. So I don't know. I guess I lean to the over too if Greensboro's not playing defense.
Yeah,
that's probably the other one I would go. It's not like Chattanooga has any defense; they don't. And UNC Greenbow's been playing a little bit faster. Their trend line's been going up a little bit, so they should be able to take some threes, and we'll see what happens. Michigan State versus Maryland, Big Ten action. This game is huge. Maryland's going to be laying about 3 points. The total on this game is 137 here. Funny about this one, Kyle, and I'll go first if that's okay. These 2 teams had massive comebacks their last games, right? Well, when Michigan State played Iowa, right? And I don't know, I thought that was their last game. Maybe it was against
that was the last game.
Yeah, it was the last game. Okay. And then Maryland was dead in the water, down 10 with like 2 minutes left, came back, final few seconds, 3-pointer. They beat Minnesota there. Oh, my gosh, did I get a lot of text on that one. I didn't play it, but I told my friends wanted to, and I gave them the lean Minnesota. I said I'd lean Minnesota -1. And that shot changed the whole thing. So kind of both of those, these big teams were in trouble here, but at least Maryland was away. Michigan State was at home and had all that trouble. And then all of a sudden, the last few minutes of that game, they just turned up their defense. Iowa choked, and they covered the spread. Michigan State, I think, covered. Wasn't it 7.5? I think they covered it.
I think the opening number was 7.5, and the closing number was 9. So we had a middle there.
There was a middle on that then. Okay, because I did see it at 7.5, and I didn't want to take it, so it closed at 9. So I guess they'll count that as not covering the spread. But either way, Michigan State with a huge comeback against them, and now they're playing each other. I think in my rankings, Kyle, I have Maryland as a better team than Michigan State. I don't know if I'm right. I'll tell you that Maryland doesn't have a good shooting percentage at all. Michigan State seems to shoot the ball better, But if you look at a lot of these games, the reason Michigan State lost 6 games and their numbers look so good on KenPom is because they've blown out a lot of teams. When they played Michigan back in January, they beat them by 17 points. They beat Illinois back in January 2nd by 20 points. Then they beat Minnesota by 16 points, beat Wisconsin by 12 points. It's just a lot of their wins were blowouts, so it pads their stats a little bit. And when I look at Maryland, I look on KenPom, their defense is ranked 12. I actually think their defense is a little bit better than that. I think when they turn it up, they can win these games just like you saw them against Minnesota here. And so, they're going to be laying about 3, and that's what I think it's going to be. I wrote down I'm going to lean to Maryland here because they get to close out the Big Ten regular season pretty much with this win. They will win the regular season. Now, can Mark Turgeon coach these kids up to do that? I don't know that. But if you look at what Maryland allows at home, it's only 60 points per game. And Michigan State does allow 68 points per game on the road. So Michigan State, I will say, had the harder schedule, non-conference than Maryland. But I think this is Maryland's spot here at home. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
I have a lot of thoughts on this one. I don't know that I have a strong lean on the side here. I will tell you some of my thoughts about both of these teams. I think you and I might disagree a bit here on Maryland. It's good for us to have a disagreement once in a while because we agree on most things.
For sure.
I think Maryland has proven me wrong with some nice road wins here in the Big Ten, but I'm just going to say, like I've said before, I don't trust Mark Turgeon. I don't trust his team in the NCAA tournament. I think they could be a good fade. I'm a Big Ten fan. You know this. I'm an Ohio State fan. I want the Big Ten to have a team that can win the title finally. It's been so long. I'm afraid the Big Ten just has a bunch of really good teams, but nobody that'll win it again. I think that Maryland is one of those teams that they've played well here. I think you could at least say they were fairly fortunate to beat Minnesota there. Minnesota has really choked a couple games away. The way they lost that game to Iowa a couple games ago, and then the way they did that to Maryland, really about as big a choke jobs as you could get there at the end of the game. I think that Maryland is a good team. I think that there's enough youth there for it to be a question mark, and I think that Mark Turgeon, not as good as a lot of the coaches that are coaching these top teams. So I don't think they'll make a really deep run in the NCAA tournament. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but that would be my guess. Michigan State, possible road revenge here. Road revenge is a pretty powerful thing. It's been a strong angle in the long run. If I were just going by systems that I followed in the past, I would want to take Michigan State here. Having said that, I've watched Michigan State quite a bit, and I don't really trust them very much right now. Izzo's definitely a better coach than Mark Turgeon. But Michigan State's kind of unknown to me. If Tillman gets in foul trouble for them, it's a big drop-off. And, Winston is clearly a good player. I don't know that he's been at his best here in some of the games recently. I don't have any real lean on the side here. What I do like is I like the under. I think that this should be a good defensive battle. If they put this game at 137 or 137.5 or something like that, I will definitely be considering taking the under in this game. If you look at the first game, it was played to a slow pace, only 64 possessions, 67-60. I think you could see a pretty similar game here, and it wouldn't surprise me very much. This game means a lot to both teams, so plenty of motivation level here. Both teams very good defensively. I think both teams are clearly better defensively than they are on offense, so I like the under here.
All right. Well, look at that. 137. You like the side or the under and lean to Michigan State. No, great to have some disagreement here because if you're right, I'll be adjusting my rankings. We'll see what happens after this game. Can't wait to see this one. This is probably probably the main game that I'm going to care most about on Saturday. Let's move into a little bit more of an under the radar game, and I brought this one up because of the situation, and let's see if you have any angles on it. Pittsburgh versus NC State. NC State's going to be laying about 7 points. The total on this game is 135. Any thoughts on this one?
I have not near as many thoughts on this game. Pitt's collapsing. They've really fallen apart here the last few games. And, if anybody can figure out NC State, then congratulations. This is one of those teams that's been really inconsistent. I think, NC State needs to win this game, clearly. I just worry this might be priced in. I think it'll be bigger than 7 points here on NC State. I think we see 8.5 points here on NC State. I don't want to lay that number of points with NC State. I also don't want to take Pitt. I don't have any real strong lean on the side. So hoping you have something a little stronger than what I have here.
I do. Pitt is kind of showed me right now that this could be one of those teams that may have given up here. And I know that their record is 15-14. That's the only thing that gives me pause. Do they care about being over 500? When you look at all, it's the wins against the non-conference. I mean, they have no shot at being in the NCAA tournament. Their only chance is to, do something in the ACC tournament, and they're not going to. They're going to be playing right away. And I just think this season's on kaputs here. And they even played. They shot 29% against Syracuse at home. Only scored 49 points. That was bad. They put up an effort against Virginia and scored, but they only scored 56. They only lost by 3 points. But I think that was more for Virginia just missing their shots here. I see a spot where this could be a bubble team that I'm actually going to play here, and I guess it would depend upon the number. You're right. It could be about 9 points now that Pittsburgh got their butts kicked so much. But NC State also just lost to North Carolina. NC State's win against Wisconsin and Virginia, Duke, Notre Dame, Clemson should be put them right on the bubble there. They are not 500 in their conference. They're 8-9. They're going to need to be pretty close to 500 there. So this is a pretty big win because then they have Duke on board and then they have Wake Forest. So I think this is a spot for NC State that they should be able to pick it up. I kind of like their leadership there. Markel Johnson, CJ Bryce, some guys that have been there for a long time. They don't shoot the three ball too well, but they still average over 44% from the field. So that's kind of what I like about NC State. They're kind of sneaky good at times. But Pittsburgh, they're one of the worst shooting teams, and they only rank 310th in the nation, 40.8%. And just kind of seeing what their effort looked like against Syracuse, and now they're going on the road, this tells me that there could be some upside on that side. So I'm going to play NC State up to 9 points, though. I'm not going to lay double digits, and probably about 2 stars on that one. Any final thoughts?
I got nothing else on that one.
All right, man. Let's move on to a bigger ACC game. And I had to talk about it because people are going to be watching it. Duke versus Virginia. Virginia plus 4 points. I have as a home dog. The total on this game is 124, Kyle. The whole problem about this thing, Duke just lost 2 of their last 3 games. What kind of Duke team are you going to be seeing here on the road at Virginia, my man? I'm going to let you go first here.
Yeah, this is a really good game. Probably not a game I'm going to bet, to be honest. A game that I'd like to watch. Virginia's played a lot better of late. I think Virginia was really weak earlier this year. Clearly a really well-coached team. And so, that says a lot about Tony Bennett and his coaching staff that they've gotten so much better here of late. Their offense, while it's not good, has clearly been significantly better for the last 4 or 5 games than what it was. I think that Duke struggles against this Virginia pack line defense. Everybody struggles against this pack line defense, but Duke hasn't been able to figure it out. Duke needs to get in transition whenever they can because that is their best chance here is to get some transition buckets. They don't want them to get to set up. I was looking at Virginia trying to figure out a weakness on defense, and the play that they've struggled with the most on defense has been the pick and roll. Duke's not ran that very often this year, so I don't know if Duke will run that a little bit more here because, finding a relative weakness in the Virginia defense, maybe they'll do that a little bit more. Virginia does not let people get to the basket. So, Duke does try to get to the basket pretty hard, can get to the line quite a bit. This is a Duke team where they've certainly been fortunate to win some of the games that they won, obviously thinking about that North Carolina game first. But, that loss against Wake Forest, I don't know what to make of them coming off a double overtime loss here. I would rather gone against them if they hadn't lost that last game. So I think I tend to lean here with Virginia, especially if it's 4 points. Maybe it'll be 3 or 3.5. I'm not sure what this one will be, to be honest with you. This is a game that, I'd take the under if they put it high enough, but I don't think they'll put it high enough.
Yeah, I think I wrote 124. Now, that's kind of what I was thinking about the most here is where's this total going to be. I think that Ken Pom has 120. I wrote 124. 120 just seems too low, and I added a few more things. This total, if it gets up to 130, I would probably play the under, but it's not. I think it's it's a high variance game. I think that it could go a lot of ways. It could be a lot of fouls at the end when you see a short spread like this, right? It's for Duke. They're shooting the three a lot better than they did last year. They ranked 78th this year in shooting three, but last year they ranked 327th, and that was, when they were the number one team overall, right? I remember that was one of the points you and I made about Duke, about how bad that they shoot the three, how that their weakness could show up, and it really did. And their free throws got a little bit better this year as well. But, I guess Diakite is going to be on carry. I guess they're going to make that matchup, right? Can he stop them? That's the big question. It's hard to go against Duke 2 out of 3. I'm probably not, but I wrote down lean Virginia here just because I think Virginia is still a bubble team. I don't think they're completely in yet. Now, you might say, well, they only have 5 ACC losses, but their best non-conference win is only against ASU. And ASU is not exactly a quadrant 1 team. ASU is playing way better, which is good for them. But I still think they're kind of bubbly here, and this would be a bigger win for Virginia. Duke's, there's some issues going on there, losing those 2 games out of 3. So I'm going to lead Virginia. We can get off that one, my man. That's a tough one right there.
I'm gonna say that I think that total will probably be lower than 124. As I'm looking at my numbers here, I think 120 and a half, 121, probably about where that number is.
Okay, well, I would lean to the over if it's that low. So that's probably where my only take would be. All right, let's move on to a huge SEC game. We have the Auburn Tigers versus the Kentucky Wildcats, and I wrote down Kentucky minus 5.5. And I wrote down the total at about 140 here. And I'll start this one if that's okay, Kyle. I have harped on Auburn a lot this year, but I think I can safely say that they're the second best team in the SEC. And sorry, Florida, sorry, LSU. And Auburn's lucky, but there's just they have that some extra gear. It's hard to quantify with Bruce Pearl in the final 2 minutes of a game. They've showed it many times, pushing games to overtime and winning them. They definitely have their deficiencies, though. They can be very hot and cold. You see that from 3. They shoot a lot of them, but they only rank 330th in 3-point percentage. 30% there. That's not good. They rebound really well, so that's kind of where they get their points. They clean up well. They have a high percentage 2-point shot when that 3 doesn't go down. But Kentucky, they don't shoot many 3s at all. As a matter of fact, they rank 349th in attempts. So the reason that is they don't need to necessarily. They're so big inside, they're usually able to control it and score low. Higgins drives the hoop pretty well. Kentucky can shoot free throws well, too, and that's one of the reasons I got another cover on Saturday night. Please don't tell me you bet Florida on Saturday, but Kentucky hit 4 free throws with 16 seconds left to go over the 4.5. They won by 6, so I was pretty happy about that. And I like being on favorites when they can shoot free throw here. The problem is this is such a big game. It's kind of a revenge spot-ish. I don't want to put too much into revenge here, but Kentucky felt they should have won that last game. One stat that really wants to put me on Kentucky is Auburn only shoots 39% on the road, which is quite bad. That's Wisconsin bad. That's how Wisconsin shoots on the road. That's really bad. And Kentucky should be able to clean up a lot of the boards with their height. So one angle that I did see is that Kentucky does play faster than their tempo. Their tempo ranks 170th, but or their average possession length is 170th, but their contempo is 213. And their Auburn's the same thing. Their possession length is ranked 69th, but their tempo is at 169. So maybe that'll factor into the line a little bit. So I think that this game could go over, and that's what I wrote down. There's another thing that I want to say: the free throw attempts. These teams these teams get fouled, man, and that's kind of why I like the over a little bit. They're both top 15 in free throw attempts. It's almost like that's what they expect to happen. They jump into people. That's high. Two teams ranking top 15 in free throw attempts. So that's why I think this thing can get over 140 here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that was actually the main point I was going to make here is the free throw attempts. And, I retweeted something the other day there about the SEC and how many fouls have been called this year. The officials in the SEC have been calling everything. Mm-hmm. And as a fan, I don't really like that. I mean, who wants to just watch a free throw battle? But at the same time, if it's happening, we're handicapping a game and we see that they're consistently doing it. This is a trend. Look at the first matchup between these two teams. 44 free throw attempts for Auburn, 24 for Kentucky. I mean, really, that's pretty ridiculous. 68 free throws. That game had to take a long time. And I think that, I would have to take the over if I was betting the total here. There's no way I could bet the under, and that would be my strongest lean in this game would be the over. I don't know. I mean, Auburn, I don't think they should be the second best team in the conference. Maybe they are. I don't know what's wrong with Florida. Florida should be better than they are. Mm-hmm. I'm a little disappointed with White and that team. They have too much talent to not be the second best team in this conference. I still think that they're dangerous. Auburn is not nearly as good as their record. I think everybody knows that. I mean, they're not a great team, but Auburn is really good at crashing the offensive glass, and Kentucky has given second chance points. Kentucky gets a lot of second chance points themselves. I think there'll be plenty of those in this one. If this line gets anywhere, 139, 139 and a half, which might happen because it's a big game, I would certainly lean to the over here.
All right, my man, you have 100% agreement with me. And if this line is below 5, I would probably go to Kentucky here just because of Auburn's poor road field goal percentage. Let's get into a game that you know a lot about, Kyle. I don't think I know a lot about them. I do know a little bit about San Diego State here. I don't know a ton about Nevada, but you threw this one up, and I thought it's a great opportunity to talk about the Mountain West here. And I got Nevada maybe a 7-point home dog against San Diego State. I got the total at about 141 here. Real excited to hear what you have to say about that since you suggested this one.
Yeah, San Diego State's clearly a very good team. I mean, they're 27-1 and they've gotten plenty of publicity here over the last few weeks. They struggled there. They lost that home game to UNLV. Really, they were close to losing to Colorado State there on the 25th. This is a San Diego State team that's a very good team. They're not one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country like some people thought they were for a while. I mean, they don't play the schedule to be able to make. I would be surprised if they won the NCAA tournament. Let's say that. I think that Nevada has played better than I expected. As I look at Nevada, I wasn't really sure what to expect from them with Steve Alford there as coach. They've played pretty well here over the last 6 or 8 games. This is a Nevada team that played San Diego State pretty tight in that first game. And if I remember correctly, they were ahead. They were ahead at halftime in that game. They fell apart there in the second half, but I like Nevada plus the points if we can get those 7 points. I don't know if we'll get 7 points here. Maybe we see 5.5 or 6. At that point, I'm on the fence. I do lean Nevada. I think this will be a close game. I think that San Diego State, deserves to be favored. They're the better team here, but Nevada doesn't turn the ball over very much. San Diego State relies pretty heavily on taking a lot of three-pointers. Nevada has really guarded the 3 well this year. I think this sets up as a tricky matchup for San Diego State, who doesn't come into this game with too much momentum, isn't playing their best right now. So I lean Nevada plus the points here.
All right. Well, I only saw a couple things. It's a lot of points for being on the road here, and I wish that Nathan Mensah was playing still with San Diego State. He has that respiratory problem, and I don't know. I think it might be a blood clot or something. that in his lungs, so he's probably not even coming back. But they lack a lot of height down low because of it, and so I think that's where they're going to get beat in the tournament. And I have them at 100-1, Kyle, to win it. That was one of the few bets I made earlier in the year, and that thing went way down. They were going to be a 1 seed until they lost to UNLV, but now that they lost that game, I really don't want to go against them. And also, Nevada can't really move up in seeds here to a 2 seed because of Utah State. Nevada's got no top 75 wins. They only really have the conference tournament here to do anything. So I'm wondering, I guess, it'd be great for them to beat San Diego State. I think there's going to be some motivation there, but I guess I wrote down, will they be really that motivated when they just get the prize for beating a top 5, top 10 team? Yeah, that's probably enough for me, but that's where I came out on it. I put a small lean to San Diego State, but I don't know. I think that's one I'm just going to stay with. Any final thoughts?
I think that it's possible I get priced out of this one. I think that Nevada will likely be a popular play. I think that San Diego State is a quality team, and I think that with their ranking coming in 27-1, I think Nevada should be up for that game. It's a nationally televised game on ESPN2. Nevada should want this one. I think that San Diego State probably wins the game. I just wouldn't want to be laying much of a margin with them. So let's see what price comes out. If this line's 4.5 or 5, I don't like Nevada. So if this line's 7, I do like Nevada.
Yeah, and San Diego State has a lot more to lose too. So one thing to keep in mind, and so they will definitely not be a 1 seed and maybe not even a 2 seed with that cake schedule. They have some bigger wins early, but losing these 2 could bump them off that top rack. That would be pretty detrimental to them. Well, all right. Well, we have a couple minutes here, but I do have a game on Sunday, Kyle. Colorado versus Stanford. And I had to give the Pac-12 a little bit of love, right? I mean, we can't be dissing them the whole time. Just not talk about them. But they're better than people think here. And some interesting things that happen in the Pac-12, just like you said, like that overtime game that we just talked about. Here's the thing about this game. Stanford makes me scratch my head. They look so much better than their record shows, and I think they still have a shot to make the tournament here without winning their conference tournament. And they won their last 3 games. They beat the Washingtons and everything, but they need to win their last 3 games here coming up, or the next 3 games: Colorado, Oregon, and Oregon State. I think that that skid that they had when they lost 8 or 9 games, they had some random injuries popping up. And one of those was when Oscar da Silva came out. He's their best player. He came out against the Colorado game, and then they lost the very next game. I think it was against Cal or something. No, they lost. Cal was just a team they shot bad.
Arizona State.
Arizona State. That's what it was. Yes, thank you. And so it was kind of a weird 8 or 9 games. But if you look at their stats, they shoot like 47%. That's fantastic. Or sorry, they shoot 48% at home, 47% in total. So if you look at Colorado, they're the team that doesn't shoot well on the road, and they're going there, right? Colorado is already in the tournament. And it's just very strange to see this Stanford team with a 7th ranking on defense on KenPom, barely being on the bubble, or sometimes not even mentioned for the bubble here. Their only weakness is really turning the ball over, but they also get a lot of steals and turnovers themselves, and they don't rebound as well, but they are a little taller than Colorado. When I look at it and put all my numbers together and ran the numbers, I have Stanford beating them by some margin here. I have Stanford beating them by 5-6 points. So I wrote down this is going to be a 1-point Stanford favorite here, but this is so important to Stanford. I would probably put a 3-star play on it, and that's kind of where I'm holding, and I wanted to see what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, convincing argument. I like it. I like the points you made. I didn't have many notes on this one. I will say that I think Stanford is a bit better than most people think as well. And I think that Colorado is in the tournament. I mean, so they clearly have less to play for than does Stanford here. I don't think Colorado is an unbeatable team by any means. They've shown that lately. They lost at home to UCLA. I think it was a good point you made too about Oscar Da Silva, very, very good player, really important to his team. And even that game where he came back against Arizona, he only played part of the game, and then they lost by 9 at home. You have to think they had a pretty good chance to win that game at home against Arizona State if he had played. And then if you look at the rest of their schedule, like you said, they really need to win these games. They got to get above 20 wins. They get a couple wins here and get to 21 wins. You have to think they probably lose at Oregon in that last game. So I think they probably know that they need to beat Colorado and Oregon State in these next two. So, motivationally, I think this is a good spot for Stanford. Playing with a solid defense like they have. They have been inconsistent on offense. They turn the ball over too much for me to love this one too much. But I do lean to Stanford here in this game.
All right. Well, that's probably my strongest take on the sides of these big games that we talked about. Are there any plays or games you want to quick throw out there, Kyle?
I wanted to give a free play to the listeners for this weekend, and if you know me well enough, you know that I'm going to go under the radar. You knew that was coming. I mean, I'm not going to give you Seton Hall and Marquette or something.
Well, if you're going to give us a main game, I would be asking if you're still taking those pain pills, Kyle. So
right. Yeah, but now the fact that I come up with for my free play, Western Illinois and Denver. I must be back to myself. Western Illinois and Denver over the total here for Saturday. This is a game where who cares about this game between these two teams? I don't know why either one of these teams would care anything. This is the Summit League final game. They're about to go into the Summit League Conference Tournament. Western Illinois is terrible defensively. Denver plays very quickly. I believe they're the quickest paced team in the Summit League, if not their second fastest. I don't see any defense being played in this game. Maybe they miss wide open shots and this one stays under, but I'm going to take my chance on that. This is one of those games where there's no motivation for either team. This is good for the over. If you take this kind of spot, for listeners, if you find this kind of spot consistently and take overs on the opening number, you're going to win in the long run. So, I want everybody to realize that, this is one of those things that maybe it hits 56% of the time or 55% of the time. If you have an edge like that, you go ahead and play it. So I think there's an edge here on Western Illinois and Denver over the total. And I think that this one will be, set at a pretty high number. Don't be afraid of the 150s here on this one. So I think Western Illinois and Denver is a pretty high scoring game. I'll take the over for this one.
All right, my man. Sounds great. Make sure you get that early. How can our listeners benefit from your information and plays, Kyle?
Well, you can go to bettersportsfix.com. Like I said, sign up for the free members area. You can sign up for the Free Picks newsletter there as well. Like I said, 51-26 in my last 77 college hoops plays. If you go over to bettersportspicks.com and sign up for either the newsletter or the free members area, just send me a message, Kyle at bettersportspicks.com, or send me a message on Twitter at Kyle Hunter Picks. I'll give you one premium play for free. So that's a nice offer there. Instead of paying $30 or $35 for the premium play, you sign up for free there. No obligation. You get one premium play for free. And then also still head over to huntersportspicks.com and sign up for the Free Picks newsletter over there. Like I said, both sites going, lots of free information. It's the time of the year where, I'm going to be putting in long hours. The family's not going to see as much of me here in the next few weeks.
Well, there you go. Thanks so much, Kyle, for coming on. You spent a lot of time with us, and I really appreciate this. I'm glad the leg's getting better here. As long as you're not in physical therapy too much, you're going to be able to watch all of these fantastic games. Thanks again for everything you do.
Hey, always a good time. Thank you.
All right, guys, make sure you follow him at Kyle Hunter Picks. Thanks for all the compliments and everything that you've been leaving on Twitter, as well as your ratings and reviews for the Odds Breakers. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy all of the games and go get some winners.